that whole $4 million, $5 million that we spent in that channel was the wrong market. We built the commercial around them. We built the advertising and ad spend around them. And as the product aged, the people that were actually buying the product was not those people at all.
The first year, going from zero to something, 30,000 in sales, and this is just the hinges.
Yep.
So it sounds like you're selling a lot of hinges to hit that 30,000 mark. How did you find those customers?
So the $150 a piece. So you can do the math. It was roughly 2,000 hardware sets, right? That we sold that year. Those customers were all on like Facebook, Pinterest, Facebook, social media marketing was really the drive. It is a lot, but there was nothing like it.
Honest Ecommerce is a weekly podcast where we interview direct-to-consumer brand founders and leaders to find out what it takes to start, grow, and scale an online business today. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honest Ecommerce. Today, I'm welcoming to the show Jeremy Barker. He is the visionary behind A Murphy Door, driving its growth from humble beginnings to becoming an industry leader, even earning the award for one of America's most innovative companies in 2025 in Fortune magazine. Jeremy, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Chase. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Now, for those that are unaware, what are the actual types of products that you're selling over there at Murphy Door?
So Murphy Door is known mostly for our hidden doors, secret rooms, kind of panic room thing, that big craze of bookcase door systems, wall moving systems. But we also do the infamous Murphy bed. We build a ton of custom Murphy beds for people, as well as fully functional hidden like accessories in the house, like your fold down shelving systems and your wall vaults that just look like pictures that slide over. So anything that has multifunction, even armoires or dressers, anything that has more than one function or that you need more than one function, we'll create. Our deal is we'll create whatever it is that you can think about that you're trying to be a little more sneaky with or that you want multifunction in. We create your dream and your vision.
That's amazing. Now, take me back in time. Where did the idea for this business come from?
So I was a full-time firefighter paramedic in Weaver County at Royce City Fire for my career. And it's a really tight business to try to make a living at, although it's probably the best job you could ever ask for. It's just not get rich quick in any means. So I was on a firefighter wage trying to build my kids a theater room in our little house. And when I say theater room, I want you to know it's like a 4-chair fold-out theater room. It's not anything great. So I wanted to make it, we're in a neighborhood that has some money. And so I wanted to make it somewhat cool. And the kids are kind of sacrificing a little bit on the coolness of the theater. So I could make a really cool, like ticket booth style door to go into the booth or to go into the door system. I thought that would be great. I'd seen another gentleman that was selling like bookcase door systems. And I thought, hey, there's something I could do there. So that was kind of the idea from him. He had some bookcase doors that he was selling on one-offs. I'm like, man, I want to build a theater room door with that same type of concept. But it was 2012 and there wasn't really anything like it. So I spent a lot of time on Pinterest and was trying to figure out ways to make the hardware work or make these doors pivot. Cause they're not normal doors. That door that I built, the first door was like 16 inches deep. And so to allow that to pivot through the doorway and give you room to still pass through was always a challenge. Like right out the gate, started with standard hinges, like the 3 hinges you'll mount on the side. And that door was so heavy, it just peeled the side of the bookcase off. And then I thought, well, I'll go with the piano hinge. And of course it does the same thing because you're still only the fasteners into the bookshelves themselves is what's holding it together. So I decided we needed to come up with some way to make these books pivot without having all the weight bearing on the side and letting it sag. So initially Murphy Door started around the idea of building a hardware set. It wasn't to build the cabinets. I thought, well, if I created a cool hardware, and by the way, there is some pivot hardware out there. It was called Rixon and it was like $300, but you needed some equipment to mortise in the hinge. And I didn't have any of that type of equipment. So I was wanting to create a surface mounted hinge. And I did it. And I, of course, spent $5,000 to create a hinge when I was trying to save money. Really dumb move, but we got a cool hardware out of the deal and initially launched into the hardware world. In my first year in business, we incorporated in December of 2012. And our first year in 13, we made $30,000 in hinges. And it was a great side jump to fire, to be honest with you. And I thought, well, that's a great lift and it's going to be awesome. And then we signed a company called Rockler and they ended up bringing us from 30,000 to 105,000 the second year. All the while from the beginning, we did build a website. That's where we created that 30,000. And I'd never built a website. It was really rough. It was sketch, a bunch of pictures off Pinterest. I'm like, we could probably pivot that and we could probably pivot that.
But the first product, just one product, it was just this new way to do a hinge.
Correct. To try to make a bookcase door system work. And that was the baseline of the business. Well, the second year when we started selling more hinges, people were asking us if we could build a bookcase. They were interested in the bookcase door, not necessarily the hinges. And again, I'm not a cabinet maker by trade, which ended up being a huge benefit, by the way, because you were able to surround yourselves with professionals and learn how to do things the right way. So I found a local cabinet guy up in Rigby, Idaho, a company called Merrill Cabinets. And Chris Merrill was kind enough to help me design the first iterations of Murphy door. And he would build the bookcase. I would put the hinges on it and we'd ship it to the customer. So the second year we did $100,000. Third year we did $1,050,000, I believe. So that was a huge spike for us. And we really were going back and forth to Rigby, Idaho quite a bit to get those bookcase carcasses. Our doors were significantly more expensive. And, when you're building a website, especially when you don't have a showroom, you don't have reviews, and you don't have customers, and your website's janky, it's really hard to convince customers to spend $3,000 on a company they've never heard of with a product that's really hard to find. So there was so much learning. How do you do your marketing? Where I had no money, you know what I mean? I really was living paycheck to paycheck per se. So thank goodness Facebook wasn't as strict back then. You could really start getting some traction fairly early. And we got to 250,000 followers pretty fast. And that was kind of where we generated our leads and would get our sales. And we'd do one door 1 week, and then it went to 2 and then 4, the standard story. But we ended up getting lucky enough to be put on a DIY I Want That episode from Discovery Networks. And it helped us a ton.
Yeah.
It literally saved my bacon. It launched the night before my Amex payment was due. And I owed like $9,000 to Amex that next morning. And we had a couple web sales that just was enough to pay my Amex payment. Otherwise, it was that deadline, like, we're shutting you off tomorrow, and it's no more.
Oof.
I'm like, oh, crap. Yeah, it was that scary type of messaging. So it's been a ride, man.
No, I got a million questions. First and foremost, the first year, going from 0 to something, 30,000 in sales, and this is just the hinges.
Yep.
So it sounds like you're selling a lot of hinges to hit that 30,000 mark. How did you find those customers?
So the $150 a piece. So you can do the math. It was roughly 2,000 hardware sets, right? That we sold that year. Those customers were all on like Facebook, Pinterest, Facebook, social media marketing was really the drive. It is a lot, but there was nothing like it.
Were you getting into paid ads and doing it that way, or more organic?
No, I had no money to really do the paid ads. So I played with it. Like, and remember the old Facebook marketing schema kind of deal that they used? It was like boost your ads, get followers.
Yeah.
Like you really didn't know how that was supposed to work. So I would get followers and then I'd pivot over. I'm like, crap, I don't really know. And my budgets were low because I was really, truly paycheck to paycheck. You'd sell a hinge. And our hinges back then, I have good margins on the hinges to be fully transparent. I mean, our cost to make them here in the United States is around $28, and we were selling them for $149. And a lot of the reason was I was paying back my payment for the patent attorney and the design and so forth. And I had to make myself back in place. But anyway, that was how we got the first 2,000 customers. Really, it was social media. And a little bit of Facebook ads, but not Google.
And so you said the patent attorney. Did you guys end up with a patent on that product?
Oh, yeah. Yep. It's patented. And it took a few years to get all that done, as you know how that process works. But we got it in. It got patents issued. It was fully standalone, unique. So
yeah, the patents are my favorite thing about them. It just reminds me of Shark Tank. Whenever like someone like drops that, everyone starts to pay attention.
Right.
Like normally before that, they're just like, yeah, this is a thing, whatever. But once you say that, this is a patented technology, that's when people really start to pay attention.
They do. And, I don't know how to feel about patents. I have a lot. I think I probably have 25 patents now. They just make you feel good. Truly,
yeah.
People, it's really hard to chase and you're spending a bunch of money to chase them. And we do it. It's not in vain, but at the same time, I feel like we waste a lot of time in the rearview mirror chasing people down for trying to mimic us when we could just improve our business, improve our, our customer experience and really just have that footprint.
Increase your moat.
Yep, exactly.
Hey, everybody, just a quick reminder. Please like this video and subscribe if you haven't. We're releasing interviews like this every week, so don't miss out. Now back to the interview. All right, so you guys start to sell the actual doors. Now,
yep.
You're going from hinges that fit in a padded envelope, maybe not.
Little box. Yeah, they went.
To this
yep.
door-sized behemoth how much was the learning curve on like shipping and fulfillment and warehouse, like just that part of it?
I love that question because it was so freaking hard. It was so hard. Here's the deal. So we're building bookcase stores. It's not a door. So imagine bringing in these freight brokers and you're like, hey man, I need to do this door. How do we ship it? Well, is it a bookcase? Because bookcase has a different freight code. And I didn't know what a freight code was. Like that's kind of how they price it. If you imagine if you're shipping lead, it's like a freight code 50 because it's a lot of weight in a small space. But if you're shipping, say, empty water bottles, you're going to be a freight code 500 because it's a lot of space, no weight. And they need to make money in one channel or the other. Bookcases had a lower freight code than a door. So you got a better rate on bookcases. Well, so we were going through and our average price to ship in 2013, 2014 was a couple hundred, $250 a door, let's say. Well, they came out to us and UPS was bidding on our product to ship our stuff, UPS Logistics or Freightline, because you can't put them in your brown UPS trucks. They're semi trucks. And they said, hey, we can move every door you have for $165 around the country. I'm like, wow, that's a better deal. Let's go that way. Well, we ended up shipping under this agreement. There was about $60,000 in freight that we'd agreed to ship through. Mm-hmm. Well, after we got our first invoicing, it was 60 grand. Well, they ended up coming back and saying, hey, sorry, this isn't a freight code 85. This is a freight code 250. So you can imagine that's triple, right? Because it's 85's one price and then it's 3x greater than that. And I'm like, dude, I can't afford $200,000 in freight. Like you bid me out at 160. Well, the freight inspector for UPS looked at it and said, hey, you said it's a bookcase. Even your brand said it's a door. It says Murphy door. I'm like, well, it's really not a door until it's hanging on a hinge, right? Until it's hanging in your doorway. Otherwise, it's just a bookcase. So it's disputable on what it is. We spent a lot of time getting the legal FHTSA freight code that we needed. There was no such thing. There was no real way to price it. It took forever on how do you insure it? Because is it furniture? Is it a door? Like it was such a battle. Freight was absolutely the thing that drove me nearest to bankruptcy while we were in this startup mode. And as you're learning how to freight, so learning how to ship these products, man, we broke 1 out of 2 at first as they go in. Like, how do you package it? How do you ship it? How do you frame it? It was tough, man. I'll tell you what, I feel bad for my first 1,000 customers. Let's just put it that way. Whether it be quality issues with the door, engineering issues these look like a bookcase. They swing like a door. They are not built like a cabinet at all. Even though aesthetically they are a cabinet, they are not engineered at all the same. And those first 1,000 customers paid a consequence of having to have a lot of warranty work. And thank goodness they were patient and we covered their warranties and fixed all the problems we caused literally on payment plans. I'd be like, hey, Chase, bro, yeah, that door's a bad deal and I'm really, really sorry. But I'm broke and I'm a firefighter, but I will never leave you in the dark. Can we work it out that I'll make some money as I sell some more doors and I'm going to build your door as soon as I can afford it? All I'm begging you for is a little bit of patience as we learn these and we get you the right thing. But I'd had some of those early onset customers that tried that we'd replace the door more than 3 times.
You stood behind your product and you also made customers for life out of that.
100%. But I can say that thank goodness they were the right customers and they understood that we were new and we were transparent and we were honest. And I think, in my first business, I think we talked about this initially, but I'd done a shed business in my early age that I went bankrupt in. And what was hard for me was to do the hard phone calls. So I'd stick my head in the sand. People would call me angry. Bill collectors would call me. And I'd made a lot of money early, but I didn't know how to get the bad news. I knew how to tell everybody about the good news and all my wins. Like, hey, look, I'm doing so great. But then when people were angry, I didn't know what to do with that. And so I avoided it. And one of my missions after that, I lived in my car for a year and learning how to do hard things. That was part of my learning curve in my car. Was like, dude, you can do something hard for a long time and avoiding bad, hard phone calls because that was what led to my ultimate demise of that business was something that I really took home. And so when shit when shit hit the fan, truly it was like, I got to call these customers. I'm going to call it now. I'm going to rip the Band-Aid off. I'm going to own up to it that we're learning. And this was the first time we built that style door. Like it was a challenge and it's not what you think it is, but I'll tell you what, the blessing is. Those customers, to your point, they were my biggest cheerleaders. They did not give me bad reviews. Imagine your first, dozen customers giving you a 1 star. You're dead in the water.
Yeah.
You're not pulling yourself out of it. So to avoid that, I just stayed ahead of it, man. I had to.
Absolutely. And I think that, this is almost even outside of like business logic. This kind of goes into just how you live your life, is when you let those hard conversations linger, you get the anxiety about it is worse than the outcome of the conversation 9 times out of 10.
100%, Chase. Isn't it feel good when you finally get out the phone? And as soon as you learn how to be like, okay, I've got to do it now. I'm going to just do it now. And I'm hitting send. We've all put that phone number in the phone and be like, I don't want to do this, dude. I can't tell this person the bad news. And now it's just easy. And unfortunately and fortunately, I did fire for a long time. And there's some times you're having to say some really, really bad news to people when they're like, how's my dad? And you're having to tell them that they're no longer with us. It was like in EMS, it's their dad. You can't give them, like, they've gone to a better place. So that kind of conditioning of being able to tell people really bad news helped. And then the experience of living in my car and committing to myself to do hard things was kind of the stack that has made this piece easier. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're in business. This is a trial and error thing every single day. Fortunately, we've had 200,000 experiences with customers now on doors alone. We're pretty good at it, but we still make mistakes and we still have problems, and doors still have a tendency to fail. I mean, these are unique one-off pieces that we've never done, and we run them through a ton of engineering before. But man, and some of these clients, you all know who they are. You've seen them on all the social media. They're the biggest names on the planet. And you cannot make them mad. And as long as you're just, acting proactively, saying, man, here's the deal. It's our first one, like 99.9% success rate, but there's a chance that it's going to be bad, but we got you. Like, we will be back here as many times as it takes. It's going to be a pain in your butt if I have to come back. I call it the inoculation theory with my guys. Just tell them all the things that could go wrong up front, and then remind them that we talked about it if that is to occur. And they'll believe that you're 100% of the time things going wrong, even though it's 0.1, because it's their experience. So you have to walk it so delicately and make sure that you're there for them, even if they're unrealistic or being unrealistic or being jerks. Just be there and be calm and help them.
Yeah, especially I think those are some of the unique nuances of your particular industry, because it is, it also needs to be installed correctly, which is a different level of sophistication for the product, and the price point, leans more luxury than commodity, and people will with that, they expect perfection almost.
Yeah. We have doors that are 30 grand, 50 grand, depending on what you want to do. Like, not just a door, but when you're talking a full wall system, they expect it to be like a new car, right? It needs to work. It needs to operate, the delivery experience, and so on. We don't do the install. And fortunately, we've made them as easy as we possibly can. But you still need a qualified guy that understands plumb, level, depths. You know what I mean? They have to get it in order to make these things operate.
I could see some of these customer service complaints being the fault of someone that didn't know what they were doing installing it, and you guys having to navigate that.
Yep, we do. Hey, we've had them installed upside down. We've had them installed, everything wrong. But here's the thing. It's easy to blame that installer.
Yep.
But ultimately, it is our fault. It is our fault that they did it wrong. And here's why. We weren't clear enough on how they did it, which way was up, which way was down, what they were expecting. Any mistake, even if, unreasonably or unrealistic mistake by these customers, if there's point of confusion, we need to take some form of equity for that, so we can ensure the customer understands from its easiest, lane, like a kindergartner, that there's no room for that. Now, there is times we've done a pretty good job now to indicate, and there's still mistakes. Sometimes people are just in a hurry, right? But we need to weigh it out. And were they in a hurry, or is it us that did something wrong? And you got to take every one of those into consideration.
Yeah, that what you just said there reminded me of Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Have you read that?
I love that book.
Yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure he's read that book.
Yep, 100%. But ultimately, it comes from failing, right? Because it's easy when you first lose to point the blame at everybody else. Because we don't want to say we're the failure. We're all pride. We all feel like we're the best at what we do. And you should feel that way. It's the right way to feel, because you shouldn't be doing something if you're not quite the best, right? You could learn it, but if you're going to charge for it, you need to at least try to be the very best. And it's easy to say, hey, it's Chase's fault. It's Ben's fault. It's everybody else's fault that didn't happen. But if you're sitting as the chair, or you're the chief executive or the president of the company, ultimately it's you. And if you can understand how to lose and fail well. And I know that that's a kind of mundane now and everybody uses generic, but there's something to it if you dig into it. It's like, man, what can I learn here? And how do I make sure that never happens again? I mean, it's not saying you'll never have another mistake, but you better not make that same mistake more than once or twice. Otherwise, you're not being the best you, and you're not giving the best to your clients.
I have been in business for nearly 20 years, and very few companies I have hired in that time have performed as well as Electric Eye. They have knowledgeable staff, and our project was delivered on time and on budget. Electric Eye has exceeded my expectations, and I look forward to working with them again. That is a direct quote from one of our clients at Electric Eye. Electric Eye is a Shopify Plus partner that has helped over 100 brands migrate, redesign, and optimize their stores since 2016. If you'd like to increase your conversion rate, average order value, and revenue per session, we are the true Shopify experts you've been looking for. Right now, we're offering a free diagnostic to qualified brands that reach out and mention the podcast. Visit electriceye.io today to schedule a call and send us a message. Find out why we have over 50 5-star reviews in the Shopify partner directory. Again, that's electriceye.io, electriceye.io. You're investing in paid traffic, email, influencers, you're doing everything, but your store's still not converting like you know it should. That's the hidden cost nobody's talking about. If you don't know why people aren't buying, you're constantly losing money. Whenever conversion rate optimization comes up with brands, the first thing I ask them at the agency is what they are using for analytics and behavior tracking. Heatmap.com is my go-to recommendation because it's the only platform I've seen that connects user behavior directly to sales. That kind of visibility is critical for e-commerce brands trying to grow. I tell every brand that we work with to install Heatmap. It shows you what's working and what isn't using real behavior data tied directly to revenue. You get live heat maps, session recordings, funnels, and attribution down to specific product pages. This isn't just another analytics dashboard, it's a revenue optimizer. And right now, Honest Ecommerce listeners get the hookup. They get a 14-day free trial. They get access to their ultimate 150-point CRO checklist. And as a bonus, you'll get a free setup by us over at Electric Eye when you ask for us to do so. So stop wasting another dollar guessing. Visit heatmap.com/honest. That's heatmap.com/honest and start seeing what your customers see, because clarity truly equals revenue. Now let's hop back to the growth of Murphy Door.
Sure.
You guys went from 30 to 100 and some change up to just past $1 million.
Yep.
What was the, gas and what fire were you pouring it on in year 2?
So 100 grand was Rockler, right? So we went from 30 and that was just kind of social media ads. The 100,000 was Rockler. That Rockler, it's a hardware company that sells little special woodworking hardware for DIYers. And then after that was the DIY pickup that they put us on some TV stuff. And then that really started to launch. They gave us some awareness. They gave us some credibility. And we ended up getting a couple of good sized clients that, that people knew. And so that kind of trend, one thing that I've known with Hidden Doors, by the way, and Murphy Door, is if somebody in the neighborhood gets it, then the next thing you know, you're delivering 10 to that zip code within the next 30 days. It just, nobody can keep secret doors a secret. It's just a secret. It's like, hey, look, they're going to have to show it off, right? It's what they want to do.
Yeah. I guess I need to ask a direct question that I'm starting to realize about the business model is, while you are selling these direct to consumer, you are also collaborating with almost third-party sellers or contractors to also be advocates for the brand. So how do you delineate those marketing or growth avenues?
So we don't actually do that. It's inherent, right? So in the very beginning, let's clarify this. In the very beginning, they did that on their own. It was the product that gave it the unique opportunity to kind of brag for itself, and customers want to share that story. We don't have a direct to contractor type market, but we do sell like Home Depot, and we have hardware on Amazon and so forth. But that came later. So 2012, we incorporated. 2013, we did 30. 2014, we did 100. 2015, we did 1.1. 2016, we got to 2.2. That's where we got to Home Depot. And that's our second marketplace that paid, right? So what we realized at that point is Home Depots were great because they were, buy online, and that gave us a marketplace and honestly like a trust badge. So what we were hoping for in the big box game was showrooming and associates that could share the product story a little bit. And what I did also find out is they turn employees quite a bit. So it's hard to train an employee there. And then the next thing you know, you have a new guy the next day. So there was pros and cons to the big box game. We're still with them. But what I did want to figure, or what I was trying to figure out is how do I build showrooms? Because you think, you're going to buy $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 doors. Our lowest one's about $1,400 right now, or $1,200. So if you're going to spend that kind of money, most people want to see it, but we didn't have that luxury, and we still don't. We have one showroom in Kentucky and one in Utah. That is it. So we decided, we started in about 2018 or 19 with this software brand that we started to develop internally that empowered our customers to share their story with future customers, kind of via Zoom link, which is called purebrand.io. And it's directly now connected to Shopify as an app, but it does some awesome work. It gives that 100%, I call it 360 review. They can ask the good, bads, and the uglies about your product and get a two-sided answer rather than, hey, it's a 1-star or a 5-star. You get to hear the whole experience from a client standing in front of one of your products, and hopefully it's your neighbor. And that's really kind of helped us grow from, we'll go back to, we got to 1 million, 2.2, almost 5. And then it went to 7.5. We went from 7.5 to 14, 14 to 23, and then on up to 36 and so on. 31.
Now, with that kind of brand advocacy software that you guys launched, Pure Brand.
Yep.
How does that benefit me as, and like, if I'm another brand listening to it? Give me a use case, a better example. Walk me through it.
You're sure? Because you're going to want it. I'm going to tell you. So here's what does awesome for you. So number one, let's say you're just you and you make epoxy coffee tables in your garage, right? And they're at $10,000, beautiful hardwood epoxy coffee table. Those cool ones like the river runs through it. And you're saying, hey, I need showrooms because I want somebody to see my beautiful craftsmanship. Well, you got a $10,000 coffee table. You're not going to Ashley Furniture, RC Willey, our house, and picking you up as a one-off, custom coffee maker guy. And they're not going to pay you, if your cost, the wholesale price is $7,000 to just go put them in displays to see how they do. It's just not real. But if you could say, hey, look, I sold one and I can convince you. So Chase, you're selling me a coffee table, and you say, hey, Jeremy, I appreciate you trusting me. I know you paid $10,000. It would be awesome if you're willing to share your story with future customers that come to my website. We'd offer them a $100 gift card to talk to you rather than me for their purchase. And I'll give you $50 if you take the call, or $20. You decide whatever you want to pay them, or pay me to take the call and share my story. So we've empowered that client to immediately say, hey, schedule it with the customer now. It's like an Uber ride. Put in your name, your phone number, and email address, and it'll text message anybody around your area with the product you're looking at. So, for example, for you, I'd be shopping your website. I'd say, want to talk to a royal customer. I'll say, I want to talk to him now. It sends a text message to your only client. And I'm able to say, hey, I can't do it right now, but let's schedule a call tomorrow at noon. We do our little Zoom conversation, and I can say how great that experience was. Now, for you, you'll end up getting a back dashboard that you log into, and you're able to watch that video, and you'll hear my experiences, the pros, the goods, the bads, the uglies. You'll hear the questions that customer has that maybe you couldn't find on your website about what to expect. And he's like, hey, you can hear those questions. We then transcribe it, and we also will forward the pros and cons of the conversation to you, and then your action plan to make that happen, either help close that client or help fix your website or shopping experience in the future. Now, one thing that I did for Murphy Door, and this is just full transparency, we're not public, but you can see it. With Pure Brand, Murphy Door gets just about 10 million visitors a year to our website. And we convert 0.24%. So it's still a lot of numbers. However, a lot of our traffic is young kids, the Barbie door, the Bat Cave, that kind of game. So they're just dreaming, which I love because in 5 years, they'll be buying a door. But the people that use Pure Brand that say, hey, want to save $100, get a $100 gift card for talking to a customer, that conversion rate is 47%. 47%. Because now they're talking to an actual customer, not a salesman. They're not being sold, they're being educated. So that's the first layer. Second layer, those videos can be used for advertising And you see, so it's user generated content. When you say, yes, I'll do the call, you've released us to say, hey, we can use it for advertising and educational purposes. If you don't agree, we fog out your face, right? So that you can't see it. But the host doesn't have the choice because you're paying them a little money. And at that point, you can put it up on Instagram, TikTok, those little conversations about you and your brand on one-on-ones. The next cool thing is when the host, which would be the past customer, uploads that our app to their phone so they can keep track of their earnings. We also do pay them a 2% conversion. If the customer ends up buying, we give them 2% of that sell price. Now, when they bring it to their phone, it takes all their contacts, drops it into your store. And then when any of their friends potentially come to your website, they can say, hey, by the way, Jeremy has a coffee table. Why don't you just call him? He's a buddy of yours, and talk to him about his experience with Chase. Right. So that's the other cool piece about it is it mines that, and then it keeps track of friends and reintroduces them to one another. So that makes it really kind of unique. There's a lot more horsepower behind this software that gives you a lot of keys. And by the way, Pure Brand only charges for up and to the right. So anytime somebody converts, we charge a 3 to 5% rate of things that we can prove. The meeting was scheduled, the meeting was held, the customer converted. And so we charge a rate on that.
Absolutely. No, that's amazing. And the intent behind it is so much more powerful. If I'm going to take time out of my day to talk to someone about a product, I basically am trying to find a reason to not buy it or to buy it. Yep. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because the intent is definitely there. We've talked about so much today, Jeremy. Is there anything I didn't ask you about that you think would resonate with our audience?
We've done a few different products that have done really well, like our Murphy Ladder piece. You know what I mean? That was also a website hit. I think something that we learned from Murphy Ladder. So that went from 0 to 15 million in the first year of business. It's a fold up ladder. We used a very reputable, I'm not going to say their name because they're great. And I love the advertising campaign. They've built some of the most viral commercials in history. So you probably know who I'm talking about. And we paid about $1.3 million for the advertising campaign behind it. And then we boosted that ad spend with another $2.5 million in ad spend that year to get that message out there. At the end of the day, I think the learning curve is that you can do just as good by building your own company brand as you can on doing these huge viral launches. And I believe a lot of people think they need to go out and spend this ginormous amount of money to get the right marketing campaign and saturate markets. Now, don't get me wrong. We got a Webby and a Telly out of that. I mean, we got a ton of views on this commercial. However, it didn't resonate necessarily into spend or to the money. So the cost per conversion was through the roof. And I get a lot of phone calls on, hey man, was that X commercial worth it? It's called the Ladder Luchador. Was it worth the money? I'm thinking about doing it. I know it's several $1 million and I'm thinking about doing a private equity round and getting the money so I can launch that way. I would say no. I would say I would do it the harder way, get some learnings early. And I'm not saying nail it and then scale it. I'm saying there's a balance and there's certain things that you can do when you're really in touch with your client. When you put all your money into that basket, you pretty much brand yourself for quite a while. When you spend that kind of money, that is who you're going to be. Mm-hmm. And what I learned is it's not necessarily who we wanted to be. It wasn't quite the message that I felt like the culture of Murphy Ladder should be. Not saying they were wrong, but you dedicate yourself to such a big, huge ad spend that may not be in alignment with who you really will be when you grow up. So I would say if you're going to do those type of ad campaigns, give yourself a little bit more education on what your product really is, who your consumer really is. That was the learning curve for us the most is our consumer. We were thinking was the homeowner, the town homeowner, the condo, because this ladder is like a normal ladder, but it folds into itself. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty awesome. And we thought this is great for apartment people. This is great for condos, townhomes, people with little space that don't have pickup trucks. It didn't turn out to be that at all. It was truly the professional, the firefighters, the home inspectors, the realtors, the things like that. That was that whole $4 million, $5 million that we spent in that channel was the wrong market. We built the commercial around them. We built the advertising and ad spend around them. And as the product aged, the people that were actually buying the product was not those people at all. So I would give a little bit of advice leaning that way. Like you spend a little time on your launch, make sure you understand who you are, what you're selling and who your client is. before you go dump your whole equity into something like that. You're giving equity away to someone and ownership in your business to take that gamble that may not be the business you want it to be, or who you want to be.
That's amazing advice and very honest. And I do appreciate it, Jeremy. Now you, before we started recording, you had also mentioned to me that you just released a book.
Oh yeah. Hey, so this is one of my 3 books I've got going right now. I've got Founder Fallout, which is the 100 must-ask questions before you share the equity. And these are questions if you're deciding to go into a partnership or looking into private equity, or even if your spouse is in support of what you're doing. There's questions that you want to ask before you really sign that dotted line and decide that, hey, we're going to be partners and we're going to be married together for that. I mean, it's like marriage, but probably worse at times because you you're talking money here. And I'll give you one example question. Like, let's say that you want a legacy company, Chase, and I'm looking for an exit in 5 years. Have you read QBQ, like the question before the question?
I have not, but I'll put it on the list.
It's a great book. So it's like most questions are layered. Like I'm going to ask you something, but you're really trying to get to a different kind of question, but you're seeing how they feel in the first soft question to get to the harder question.
Yeah, it's Socratic questioning. Just keep asking why.
Yeah, it's just it. Just ask the why. So it's layered kind of like that. And there's lessons behind each one of these. Like, hey man, there is a way to make this relationship work. Even if I want to exit in 5 years and you want a legacy company, we need to understand how it's going to be valued, what to expect, and how do we get to realistic valuations. And if you get that out first, rather than walking out 5 years later and say, hey, Chase, man, I think I need to sell. And you're sitting here like, hold on a second, man. Like I was wanting to turn this over to our family members. And how do I pay you? Because we're only 5 years old and where am I supposed to get the money? Like these are little things that you should really discuss with one another. Like, what about the guy that gets sick and then you're carrying your workload for a year? Does that diminish his equity or does it stay the same? Or like these are questions that you really should ask so you don't harbor some anger in your heart. And it's going to be really hard not to in all these different levels. So I felt like that was a book that would be really important to release. I also have one called Built from Scratch coming out, which is done. I just need to get it finished through editorial. And it's the 100 questions to ask yourself before you start a business. And then my next one is Ashes to Empires, which is like an autobiography that just talks about going from rich to broke to rich to broke to back to rich again, I guess. So, but that one's a fun one. And I put a lot of time and passion into that thing, trying to say, hey, I haven't had very many partners per se in many. And the little frustrations, we always want partnerships to be good. And I think anytime you make sure your partner's always winning, people will be willing to partner with you. But don't forget you need to win too. And it's not wrong to both have an upside. But being clear on expectations from one another is extremely important. Business is hard enough. This isn't for the weak. It isn't for the weary. But if there's no reason to lose, well, how about this? Lose less sleep. Ask the right hard questions with one another. It's worth a day to sit down and ask each other these questions. There's a workbook. So there's about 100 questions that are just a layout of the question. Then there's a workbook that you work out with each other. And then you see how they answer. And then there's a question notes for yourself. Like, how did you feel? Are you in a moral alignment? And it doesn't matter. Moral compass doesn't matter. What I'm saying is, are you in alignment? You can be good or a bad person. Are you both bad people or are you both good people? It doesn't really matter. It's just, are you on the same page? Because that's the most important thing.
That's amazing. Now, if I want to learn more about, obviously, Murphy Door, Murphy Ladder, any of your other companies, just you yourself. Yep. I know you have a podcast as well.
Yep.
Where are you at on the internet? Where can people find you?
Yep. I'm at jbarker482 on Instagram, Jeremy G. Barker on LinkedIn, and then YouTube, J. Barker. I think it's Jeremy Barker 482. Don't ask me the 482 business. It has no meaning. It was just whatever assigned me from Google, and now it's just kind of rode with me. But you can find me on Facebook. Again, my book is Founder Fallout. It's available on Amazon. So there's paperbacks currently, and then there's the Kindle e-read. So
awesome. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Chase, you're awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was fun.